Well, good morning to everybody, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, as I hope that we can continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, live the life we love. I'm going to try this new format. Let me know what you think about it. I'll try not to make it too long. So that means we'll skirt through this presentation literacy. This is one talk that calls A Life Far Too Convincing. First thing I've learned from BKS Iyengar is that yoga helps you cure what need not be endured and endure what cannot be cured. So that's what gives authority to my experience, because I've learned to live with a condition that cannot be cured, but I've learned to endure it. And in certain ways, I hurt my back when I was 15. So for 50 something years, I did really, really well with the condition that couldn't be operated on. And in the last 2 years, I broke a hip and had another hip completely replaced. So I've totally learned from the authentic experience of my own life how to adapt yourself, how to innovate, how to create, and not give up. And when you take the journey to the East, you find that fresh metaphors are what works for us. I know it's an amazing thing to say Moses saw the burning bush, said, take off your sandals, you're on holy ground. It reveals itself and communicates to you. But because it's our culture, it's old and we don't get it. But when you say life is like a lotus flower that feeds from the muck on the bottom, but springs to the surface looking beautiful and untainted, this is a metaphor for being involved in the spiritual world and not letting the stain of the material world pull you down. And of course, that's the province of Lord Shiva, the Lord of the yogis. Of course, you know, he has many, many forms. He's the meditating yogi who doesn't want to be disturbed. So when the world was being destroyed by a demon, he couldn't be bothered. He just pulled out a lock of his hair, threw it down, and became the demon slayer Virabhadra. But he's also the king of the dance, Nataraj. He's the one that's spinning the whole world. He's the cosmic phallus. He's the creator, and he's the lord of destruction. So there are many things you can find. And if you realize that there's more than one plane of reality, you're not psychotic if you're living for spirit. Then you meet somebody like a Zen master like Suzuki Roshi, whose life is far too convincing for you to overlook, both in its simplicity, its naturalness, its spontaneity, and its depth, and its unself consciousness. He has the phrase that says, in the master's mind, there's many possibilities, in the beginner's mind, in the beginner's mind, there's many possibilities, in the master's mind, there's few. What is he talking about? Well, normally you think, yeah, the beginner doesn't know anything and the master has the whole thing down. That's not what he's saying. What he's really saying is the master represents the dead consciousness. It thinks it knows, so it's no longer exploring. It's no longer curious. Whereas the beginner is open to everything, ready for anything. And therefore, that's the state of mind that you want to maintain, because when you advance a little bit, you think you know something, and then you lose beginner's mind. That's the one you want to return to. And then you realize that one of the negative projections, I would say, in Eastern philosophy is putting onto the guru divine infallibility, like they can't make a mistake. Every cough is a sign of some kind of wisdom that they're saying. So when you do that, it's easy to get hoodwinked and get involved in a cult, because almost all teachers have clay feet. And as history continues to prove in so many different fields, we put these things on human beings, and they have flaws, they have vices, they fall from grace. And then you realize you're not supposed to be looking for the Buddha outside yourself. So, do you have a spiritual practice? It all comes down to what are you doing to work your craft? Telling the beads. This is like the rosary, the Rudraksha beads, also a sign of Shiva. So, are you sincere? Because if you don't have a practice, you're not taken sincerely. You're not taken seriously. But the idea is to up your game. I'm glad I lived in Chicago during the Michael Jordan years. He really showed you what it was like to set the standard, have such a high bar of professionalism and work ethic that below that it's not acceptable. Everybody else looks towards you. And when you get so far that there's no one else you can compare yourself to, you got to chart your own courses. But obviously, it's worth it. But remember, he took over 300 shots that he missed, right? But he kept on shooting them because even though it might have been the game winner and he failed, doesn't matter. He comes back and does it again. And he won many, many games on last minute shots as well. And then you have the idea that when you practice yoga, it's not for the utilitarian purpose of getting health, calming your mind, dealing with an injury, doing something non competitive. The purpose of yoga really is to contact ultimate reality, whatever that means. And how do you find out what ultimate reality is? Well, you have to study not Hinduism or Buddhism, but you have to study mind. Once you start studying mind, you understand that there's a shift from the left brain dominance of our culture to the right brain understanding intuitively of stuff. even though the ratio of the corpus callosum to the volume of the hemisphere seems to have gotten smaller, so maybe we're not feeding as much. But we can do it by priming the pump, by studying art, music, and doing those other things in the intuitive arts, whether it's flower arranging or calligraphy or tea ceremony or anything else that refines your sensitivity and makes you understand Homo aestheticus, man, the artist. Remember, every king and queen has a place where they dispense their wisdom or their justice. Find your throne room. Every warrior, whether dark or not, has a battlefield where he has to face the challenges of existence. Every scientist or jnana yogi has a laboratory where they're perpetually doing research and experimentation. And every lover needs a garden, a private space where they can go to regenerate and do things behind prying eyes where no one else sees. And then we understand, as Fritjof Capra has reminded us, the mystic and the physicist arrive at the same conclusion, one starting from the inner realm, one starting from the outer realm. And the harmony between their views confirms the ancient Indian wisdom that Brahman, the ultimate reality, is without, and it's identical to Atman, which is the reality within. And if you get all that, then it wraps you up to remember storytelling is when language is not up to the task. You can use images and metaphors to create what I call the romance with the imagination. And everybody hears the same story denotatively, but connotatively, they relate to it according to their own subjective experience. All right, so that's what I have to say. Let's see how this goes. Maybe I'll continue this and we'll refine this in the future.